But we need to move on to this last objection, and this last objection is a bit interesting because basically the idea here is like, okay, doesn't this inner witness of the Holy Spirit make apologetics pointless and useless? Just base everything off this inner witness of the Holy Spirit. And, you would say, well, Ben, you're doing this long video series on apologetics, so you obviously think apologetics is not useless, so you clearly don't really believe this inner witness of the Holy Spirit thing. But no, that would be a bad objection, because everything is really already there in what I said. In the event that you don't have the farmer, you don't have a good defeater for your belief, then you don't need apologetics. But as soon as you have a defeater, you're going to have to deal with it. So Plantinga's point is like, the problem of evil is an argument against God's existence that, like, if it's flawed, it's not obvious that it's flawed. You're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to give something like his free will defense to refute the problem of evil. You can't just leave it unrefuted and still be justified, because your belief on the basis of your basic beliefs that are justified through sense experiences are, they still, can be false. And remember, that's exactly what John's saying in 1 John 4. Don't believe every spirit. Test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. So, it's not like the inner witness of the Holy Spirit is unfalsifiable, even biblically. Okay? You need to figure out what kind of spirit you're dealing with here. Is this a spirit from God, or is this a spirit not from God? Okay? And we start thinking about defeaters that we could be dealing with, like, yeah, the problem of evil is one. You could refute the problem of evil, but, like, then it's like, well, now, wait a minute. Like, what if somebody says that Jesus never existed and Jesus was just, based on Egyptian and Greek and Roman myths? And, Jesus is just a legend that was never, in no person, Jesus of Nazareth, existed. How are you going to respond to that without giving me historical evidence for the existence of Jesus of Nazareth? Because once you do that, you're doing apologetics. So, I think most people kind of get this. It's like, once you get confronted with good defeaters, or at least defeaters that seem good, at least on the surface, you're going to have to deal with them. I mean, this idea that Jesus is based on pagan myths is not a good defeater, but it looks good on the outside until you start studying it for a second. And you start doing some apologetics, and then you defeat the defeater, and then you're back where you were. Okay, now, let's think about it this way. What if you didn't have a good defeater for Mormonism? Okay, so, what if, hypothetically, just pretend that we didn't have, we really do, but let's just pretend that we didn't have a good defeater for Mormonism. Okay, so, like, you think back to the sheep example. You're walking down the road, you look out in the field, and you see a sheep. And somebody else comes up, we'll say he represents the Mormon, and this other guy walks down the road, and he says he sees a dog. Okay. In that example, should you believe in the sheep? Well, you know more about yourself and how you came to the conclusions you did than this guy who's a total stranger to you. You don't know this guy. Why should you believe what he says necessarily? You're going to have to give more weight to the fact that you see a sheep over there than that guy. But let's say that millions and millions of people, I think there's like 4 million Mormons in the United States alone. We've got, I think, like something like 60 million Catholics, Roman Catholics, 16 million Southern Baptists. But the biggest church is sort of the just non-denominational, just conservative Christian in general, or some new denomination type thing. But like, if you lump those all into one category. But there are millions of Mormons, so like if millions of people come up and say, yeah, that's a dog, you're going to have to deal with that. Like, you can't just write that off and say that I don't know that guy, he's probably kook. You're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to do apologetics with that. Like, you can't, like there's over 4 million Mormons. Like, you have to address Mormonism, in that case. You can't just rely on the Holy Spirit. Or alternatively, you could, think of it in an atheistic sense, people that don't believe in God, and then it's like they come up there and say they don't see anything out there. And they say they don't experience this inner witness of the Holy Spirit, and you seem crazy to them. And they're not saying they have the Holy Spirit's telling them something else. They're just saying, I don't experience that. I don't experience the conviction of the Holy Spirit. You guys, you Christian people are crazy. Okay, you're deluded, Well, there's a lot of atheists too. I think it's like, last I heard, it was 4% of U.S. population. There's a new study that came out that is challenging that, but that's, I don't know, it was like a Pew Forum study that was it was like 9%, America's 9% atheist, but then it was like, or / agnostic, but then it was like a fifth of those hold a belief in supernatural beings. So, but they said yes to, are you an atheist? And they check yes, but do you believe in supernatural beings? 20% of the 9% do. So or I forget what, there's issues that are going to have to be looked into with that, but bottom line is there's millions of atheists in America, much less the rest of the world. There's millions of atheists out there. You're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to deal with their whole thing, which means you're going to end up having to give reasons to believe in God. Okay, so when there's a lot of people that are seeing something else, it's clear that's going to have to lower your confidence level. Your belief in the sheep is justified. It's not unfalsifiable, but maybe it's really high, like 99%. But when you have millions of people saying they see nothing over there, and then you've got millions of people, saying they see Joseph Smith over there, it's got to lower your confidence level in your own perception, sense experience of seeing the sheep. So you're going to end up needing to do apologetics. And one of the real issues is okay, I'll come up with it. I'll do like I did with Mormonism, and I had negative reasons to defeat Mormonism. Or, atheists come at me with the problem of evil. I defeat the problem of evil. Then atheists have nothing. And then I can trust my belief. The problem is there's so many different things like this. Like Hinduism. Hindus totally go into trances and have experiences of what they believe as Hindus. I remember one story, this guy, he was in a trance and he saw the ultimate oneness, that we are all really one and we're all like spokes on a wheel coming together. And in India, there's atheistic forms of Hinduism, there's polytheistic forms, there's monotheistic forms, and there's even pantheistic forms where everybody is God. Buddhists have experiences like this. And even within Christianity, there's supposedly over 1,500 different Christian denominations in this country. So that's quite a bit, and the beliefs aren't always going to be true to the gospel of Jesus Christ, like how Mormons say that everybody goes to heaven, but you have to work to go to the higher heaven. And, it takes away, as soon as Mormons take away the idea of everybody going to hell, then they have a smaller concept of God's grace. God didn't really die for us in this extreme sense, and they believe that Jesus didn't actually die for us. He just sweat drops of blood in the Garden of Gethsemane for us. Crucifixion is just this extra thing that happened that was just bad, mean thing that was done to Jesus. So, my point is this. It's not really practical or feasible for you to make a negative case against all of these other religions and beliefs and, different views on things. It makes a whole lot more sense for you to just give positive reasons for what you believe, and instead of trying to disprove, provide negative apologetics for every other belief, that's not going to be practical. It's going to make more sense for you to just do positive apologetics for the truth of Christianity, and then that'll handle them all. So anyway, apologetics is going to be needed as long as there's going to be, a sufficient number of people who seem like, if there's millions of people, then there had to be some good, reasonable, honest, rational people in that camp, and a lot of them. Like you're not going to have that many people without at least one guy, not being a kook. And so then that all it takes is that one guy who really is not a kook, and you know him not to be a kook, and he sees something else, then you've got a real issue. Okay, if he's really, that he's coming to his beliefs in a serious, reasonable way. So that being said, that's really all I wanted to say on this. So I don't think I need to say anything else on this. So we'll just end it there, just under an hour. And you're rationally justified for believing in the truth of Christianity on the basis of the inner witness of the Holy Spirit. But if you get confronted with defeaters, you're going to end up to need to do some apologetics. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for your time.